I do tend to talk fast, so if you need to slow me down, that's fine. If you want to throw out questions while I'm talking, that's fine, or save them for the end, whatever you prefer. So I've been learning and practicing energy healing for probably about 12 years. But my whole life, I always knew somehow innately that there was more to life than just what we see with our perceive with our five senses. Even in high school, I was taking books out of the library on life after death. And I always just sort of knew there was more, and it wasn't just like when we die that it's lights out. So that's just always been an interest of mine my whole life. I have certifications in 3 types of energy healing: Reiki, and within Reiki there are 2 types of healing that I practice: Usui Reiki and Karuna Reiki. And then I've also been certified in reconnective healing and the emotion code healing. And up until recently, I was a volunteer at Griffin Hospital doing Reiki with the patients there. And also what's known as a conscious channel. So I actually had a healing that opened this up for me, where I can kind of get into a meditative state and then raise my vibration. And then I think spirit lowers theirs, and I can kind of communicate in a way where there's sort of a conversation. I can ask questions, I can receive answers, I can type the answers, or I could handwrite them, but typing is just easier, or I can verbally speak of them. So so a lot of learning and doing and practicing and things have come about over the years through this for me. So it's just I'm never tired of it, never get bored with it. I kind of wanted to start out like broadly and just talk about what energy in general, what is energy healing, and then I can focus a little bit on Reiki if there's time. So we're human beings, and actually everything that exists is made of energy. We are mostly energy. There is more energy in our bodies and in things that exist than there is actual solid matter. So and I'm going really old school. I was thinking about doing like a PowerPoint, and I just couldn't do it, couldn't pull it together. So so this is, you probably remember from junior high science, this is an atom. Obviously, we're all made up of trillions and gazillions of atoms. And what you'll notice is that there's a lot of space between the subatomic particles. So that looks like empty space, but really it's just full of energy. And the energy is what keeps the particles from flying off in different directions and kind of staying together like this. If you blew this up to the life-size proportions, if this one atom were as big as a cathedral, a large church, then the nucleus in the middle would be the size of a fly in the middle of this cathedral. So that's how much empty space really exists between all these things, and how much energy exists. And I believe that that energy is God, that's what God really is. That's what I believe. Not in any religious sense, but in more of a spiritual sense. So that to me then means that we are mostly God. We are mostly made up of God energy, which is a nice way to think of it. There's an expression that Ram Dass, who's a guru who's passed on recently, says, we are all really just God in drag. And I kind of like that. We're just these particles that formed into a human body, but we're really just spirit. So that being the case, that we are mostly energy, a lot of healing can take place on an energetic level. And if you look at this picture, this is like when you went to the state fair and you won a goldfish and he gave it to you in this plastic bag. This is really more what we are like in terms of energy. So our human body is like the goldfish, and the energy that makes us up is really this surrounding the bag and then the water. It's more like we're floating, our particles are floating in a container of energy. And I just lost my train of thought. So if you think of it in terms of if there was a little tiny pinprick in the plastic and a little bit of water could leak out, that is one way that we can have an energy leakage in our system. And so it's similar to that, where that creates an unwellness in us when there are, and I'll get more into that, but that is the way we can lose energy and become depleted. So in this sense, you've probably heard this phrase, but we are spiritual beings having a human experience rather than a human being with a spirit. That to me is kind of like a depiction of that. So I'm going to read the definition of energy healing because I wouldn't be able to say it as well off the top of my head. Energy healing is an ancient system by which the practitioner transmits healing energy to the client in order to restore or balance the body's energy field. By removing blockages or stimulating the flow of energy, our body can naturally heal itself. Energy healing helps on many levels, including physical, mental, spiritual, and emotional. So going to see an energy healing practitioner, you can heal all those different issues in all those different senses. A lot of times you can go to an energy healer because you have a physical problem. You might have a backache or something you want healed. And what spirit knows is that it's not just your back that needs to be healed, but maybe there's a relationship that needs to be healed, or something on an emotional or mental level needs to actually be healed before the physical problem can be healed. Sort of like getting the root of the problem needs to be healed before the symptom needs to be healed. And so you can sometimes go in and see somebody because of a physical problem, and yet you may not quite quickly get rid of the physical problem, but other things in your life may shift or change as a result of the healing. So we all have an aura, which is what the plastic bag sort of represents. And I can somewhat see auras. I don't see them in color. Some people can see them in color, and some people can literally see them dissected and what makes up an entire aura, which is a lot. I see, if I'm looking at a person against a blank wall, I will sort of see a shimmer, like when you see the heat coming off the highway in the summertime. Sometimes I'll see a glow or a slight color to it. But living within your aura is a perfect hologram of your human body, exactly perfectly as it's meant to be. And so when your body heals itself, it actually pulls information from that field, from that perfect hologram of yourself. So a person who maybe had an amputation, in their auric field would still be the perfect representation of their body prior to the amputation. Everything still exists in that energy field in that way. Let's see. I don't know if anybody is familiar with Esther Hicks. She's somebody I follow a lot and I listen to her teachings. I'm going to share something that I heard through her, which is people will often ask why is it an animal like a starfish could grow a new limb and yet a human being couldn't do that? And her answer to that, which I think is so profound, is it because the starfish believes that it can. So we all actually have the ability to heal ourselves. Part of the problem is we don't believe it. It's such a hard thing to imagine that we could do something like that. If you could think in a more perfect way, you would be able to. And I believe that's why some people can have spontaneous healings, or what might be called miracles is an actual shift in a belief and maybe a shift in your spirit's belief that healing can take place and can happen. So when a person comes to an energy healer, the healer is really just the conduit. So when I do Reiki on someone, the Reiki energy is actually entering through the top of my head. There's a chakra in the top of my head, an energy center, and it comes out of my hands and into the person's body. So the energy is traveling through me. I'm not actually making a healing take place. I'm just sort of holding a space and allowing the energy. And then that person's spirit will help with the healing in whatever fashion it knows is in that person's highest interest. So like I was saying, you might come in for a backache, and yet spirit knows that you have an emotional issue regarding not feeling supported. And that's what really needs to be healed first. And through that, then eventually, hopefully, physical healing takes place. Anything that goes wrong physically in your body, health-wise, begins first on an energetic level before it's ever a physical problem. So what an energy healer, what was the best thing to be able to have happen, and why I think it's good to have healing like this, even when you're not unwell, is to have the energy blockage removed from your energy system, from your field, before it ever becomes physical. Because over time, it will work itself in until it becomes an actual physical symptom in your body. And then even when it does, you know, I'm also a believer in allopathic medicine, and I think it's great to go to a doctor, and it's great to have medicine and healings and surgeries and things like that when they're needed. But I think also what happens is a lot of times they will give medication or treat a person in a way that just removes the symptom, but it never deals with the underlying cause. So, you know, I used to have a lot of eczema, and I had a cortisone cream, which I didn't want to use because it's cortisone. And yet it was the one thing that helped, and it would get rid of the eczema for a while, but eventually it would come back. So through other types of healing, I was able to eliminate having eczema by somehow getting to the root of whatever was causing it energetically. I thought we could do a really quick little exercise where you can feel your own energy, which is if you take, so we have chakras in the palms of our hands. They're one of the main ones. And if you take your hands and you rub them together till they get really, really warm, just takes a couple of minutes. And then close your eyes, hold your hands about a foot apart. And then if you start pulling them together really slowly, for me, it's better if I close my eyes because I can feel it better. But you'll come to a point where either you might feel tingling in the palms of your hands, or you might feel a resistance where you kind of don't want to push them together anymore. For me, it happens right about here. And that is, you're feeling, with one hand, you're feeling the energy field of the other. So that's kind of cool. And if you can't do it right now, I would say practice it later. Sometimes it takes a little sensitivity to feel it, but it's kind of cool. So there's a lot that we don't see that exists. I love the idea that there's so much, I could talk forever about this stuff. There's so much that goes on energetically that we don't see. And then a couple of things I thought I would share with you that you can do. So your thalamus gland is here at the top of your breastbone. And if you're feeling anxious or worried or ungrounded, you can just tap on that. And it kind of, after a while, brings your anxiety level down. So that's one good thing. You might have heard of tapping. EFT, emotional freedom technique, is a type of tapping. And if you're interested, it's pretty neat. And I know some people who do it really regularly and think highly of it. But in EFT, you tap on different parts of your body. These are some of the tapping points here and here. And going through a regular sort of series of those is very helpful in relieving stress. You can also do this, drawing a figure 8 this way across your eyes is this, you're touching on some of those points I was just showing you. So that's also stress relief. in tapping, if you go and look at some of those videos, they tell you there's a whole system to it, and you're supposed to tap while you're talking, and you're talking about things that are bothering you. You can pick a particular issue or something that's going on in your life, and you're talking through it while you're tapping. But I find it very confusing the way they do it, and I can never kind of get a grip on what am I supposed to be saying, and what order do I say it in. And so what I have found is good is that you just, if you do the tapping or you do the tracing or anything like that, and just talk as if you're having a conversation with your best friend, complaining about the thing that, you know, like, my mother is driving me nuts and I can't stand it, and this is what she said, and just talk about it like you're talking and unloading on a friend. And then once you kind of get all that out, continue to do this, or whatever the tapping is, and talk about, turn the situation around and talk about positivity in terms of that thing. And if you look at the videos, you'll kind of get a gist of it. But so those are a couple things you can do. So a little bit about Reiki and what that is. The word Reiki translates into universal life energy. It's a Japanese word. It comes, the practice was begun in Japan. So Rei meaning God, and Ki or Chi means energy. So those two words together are universal life energy. And it was begun by a gentleman by the name of Mikao Usui in Japan, and it was brought to the West after he passed away. His wife actually brought it and taught, she would teach people. And so there's a whole lineage. Anyone who learns it now was eventually, if you follow the lineage of teachers, it would transfer right back to them. And the way it works is, I'll show you a picture of, this is a human body, and these are the body's main chakras, and there are 7 main chakras, and they're numbered 1 through 7. So they have each chakra has a front and a back. Each of these chakras, these 5, have a front and a back. And then your first chakra and your 7th chakra are a pair. And so I'll keep holding this up a little bit while I'm explaining this. So the Reiki practitioner is putting their hands on your chakras. You can either hold your hands over a person's body or on their body, right where the chakra is, and the energy is transferring from your hands in through the chakra. A chakra is a vortex. It's an energy, it's a center where energy enters and exits your body all day long. Your body is kind of feeding off of this energy all day long and nourishing itself in different ways. Or if you have a blockage, the energy isn't allowed to enter or exit your body, or it's slow. I find Reiki to be a really, really gentle, relaxing energy. And oftentimes, I'd say the majority of the time when I'm doing Reiki on somebody, they will fall asleep. The people at the hospital that I work with, for sure, I think it's such a overwhelming place to be. And just to have somebody come in and hold their hands on you for a little while and kind of I used to feel like it's babysitting, like while I'm in there, no one else, the nurses and the doctors don't come in unless they have to. And the person is just allowed to have some time where there's somebody taking care of them and watching them. So we have 7 main chakras, and then there's over 3,000 chakras elsewhere in your body, and they correspond to the meridian lines. If you've ever had acupuncture done, or you've seen those diagrams of the human body with all the lines running through it, the chakras correspond to those lines on those charts. They spin in a clockwise fashion. They actually turn. And if I'm looking at you, they're turning clockwise as I see you. The lower 3, the bottom 3, 1, 2, 3, have to do with primal human issues. And then the top 3 have to do with more spiritual issues, so to speak. And then the heart chakra, which is the center, is the bridge between those. And every chakra has a color that relates to it. And every chakra has an emotion that relates to it. And also every chakra governs different parts of your body. So every organ and every part of your body, from your skin to your tissues and all kinds of things, have a corresponding chakra. So if you have a certain issue in a certain part of your body, there's a chakra that can be worked on to correspond to that. So I just watching my clock, and that was 20 minutes. So I could, there's much more, there's so much more to learn, and I could go through more about the chakra stuff, but I'll leave it at that. And if you, in the future, when we're allowed to be together, would like to have a Reiki session with me, I can do them at HAYVN down in the massage room where Maria will do her massages. So when that time comes, feel free to reach out, and I'd be happy to give you a session.
Thanks, Kim. This is really, really inspiring. There's some questions here in chat.
Sure.
So, okay. Well, Annie said something about the word I think you mean is ecosystem. Okay, that might be more of a comment. And then Heitza had said, referring to your earlier picture, is the aura from the bag, is the aura then the bag containing the fish?
That would, yeah, the bag would be sort of the outer layer. There is like kind of an eggshell layer. The outer layer would be your eggshell kind of concept, but the water would be the layers in between that. So there is sort of a container to it.
And I think Amy, yours was more of a comment about the thymus. Okay. And then Teresa had a question. This is interesting. Sometimes when you enter the room, you can feel the bad energy or the good energy. Is that linked to people's energy fields?
It absolutely is. And the more of an empath you are, the more some people really feel that sort of stuff super strongly, but absolutely. I can tell you a little story that there's a woman that I follow. She's just an amazing healer. She's a medical intuitive, so she can literally see what's wrong with you in your body without having to ask a doctor. She can see the cells of your body, and she's quite amazing. So she tells this story. She was married at one point, and there was a couple that her husband always wanted them to get together with and hang out. And she said for some reason, and she couldn't understand why, she just didn't like this woman. And I've actually had a similar experience with somebody I just didn't really like, but there was no reason for me not to like her. Pleasant enough person, nice enough to talk to, but I just didn't really want to be around her. So Marie, this woman, her name is Marie, she could see people's energy really clearly. And they had a dinner party, and this woman was across the room, and she said she could literally see her energy field. There was another woman in the room who was talking about something very tragic, something very emotional and kind of upsetting. And she could see this woman's energy literally reach out and tap into the emotions that were coming from this other person. So she, like the descriptive word would be like an energy vampire. Like she was almost feeding off of what was coming off of this other person. And she was egging on the conversation to get this woman to speak more about what was such an upsetting event, and then literally energetically drawing from that. So if you think about it, there may be people in your life where, when you're around them, you don't feel great, or, they can drain you, or they don't almost know how to metabolize their own energy properly. So the way they get energy is kind of dragging it off of you. So if you could, that's what I mean when there's a lot that goes on that we don't see, it's probably a good thing you couldn't see that happening. But yeah, so that's why when you walk into a room, you can feel that. Or have you ever been in the grocery store or anywhere and you feel somebody looking at you, or you look around and somebody's looking at you? That's because you're actually sensing that energy. You're sensing that, them looking at you, sensing what's going on behind the scenes.
Thank you, Kim. That's really interesting. I really do believe in energies, and you can feel it when you walk into rooms. And also, I think many of us as a mom, you want to create that positive energy in your house as well, because it just totally kind of transfers down to your children. So I'm totally with you. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then Cynthia commented, is that the medical intuitive that you're talking about, Christine Northrop?
No, the one I'm talking about, Christiane is more, she was a doctor. She was an OBGYN, and I think she does a lot of work. She's kind of in this arena, but the medical intuitive, her name is Marie Manucherry. If you Google her or check out her website, and she's also got an awesome podcast, but her last name is Manuchehri. And I had she does reading. She'll do a psychic reading with you also, which I signed up. It took 18 months. That's how long of a wait list she had, but she was awesome.
Okay, and then Jamie said, can human energy implant itself in the things and spaces around you? I believe in the practice of space clearing. How does this interconnect with energy healing?
Yeah, it does. This is a bit of a deep topic, but there is a phrase that your thoughts are things. Your thoughts are actual things, right? So yes, if you're, gosh, I'm trying to think how to say this. Yes, I totally agree. And yes, I agree with space clearing. I think people can leave their energy behind. There is energy everywhere. So an example might be if you are not somebody who's typically afraid of, like, say, driving over a bridge, and then one day you're driving over a bridge and you begin to have a panic attack about driving over this bridge and a fear of it. You may have just been traveling through, somebody else left behind that energy, right? They left behind their fearful, worrisome issues on the bridge, and you kind of pass through them. So yes. And I do think space clearing and those kinds of things have an effect. Sound can be a good clearing too. If you just hang up some chimes and hit them every once in a while and make the tinkling sound, can clear energy.